Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for the Small Cap Insights podcast powered by Darrow Associates. I'm Jack Greenberg with Darrow Associates. We are a leading full-service investor relations firm focused primarily on small cap equities. Joining us today is our own Alison Ziegler, Managing Director of Darrow Associates. Welcome to the show, Alison. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So first question would be, how did you come to Darrow Associates? How long have you worked for the firm?
Sure, I've been with Darrow for nearly 10 years now. I've been in investor relations for well over 20, probably closer to 30. Prior to my time in investor relations, I was an investment officer with a multi-billion-dollar investment firm. I did research on a diverse group of industries, and I also provided research ideas for our small cap fund. And I do find that researching small cap companies was a great preparation for my transition to investor relations. And while I was doing some of my initial investor relations firm work, that's where I met Jordan.
So can you tell me a little bit about your clients that you work for at Darrow?
Sure. I currently have two small cap companies. Both of them are about 100 million in market cap. The first one is Bridger Aerospace. The ticker is BAER. They are a leader in aerial firefighting and are experiencing significant growth as wildfires have become more of a year-round threat. And I'm sure everyone's heard, the news about California, North Carolina. They're currently up in Alaska. My second company is QuickLogic. The ticker is Quick, QUIK. They're in the semiconductor space, specializing in something called FPGA, which is field programmable gate arrays. One of the exciting parts about Quick's business is that they're working on a strategic radiation hardened chip for the Department of Defense. This has a lot of opportunities when you think about space, and also the government is refreshing several of their defense programs related to the nuclear arsenal. And those would definitely benefit from having a strategic rad hard capabilities.
So you mentioned kind of the opportunities that your clients face. What are some of the challenges that you typically run into?
Sure. Small cap companies usually have fewer banks and research analysts that follow a company, so it's much more difficult to get them known. They typically don't have the trading volume that attracts some of the larger institutional investors. And so what we found is, you can't ignore the retail investor, and the retail investor can play a role in trying to help with trading volume. There are lots of pay for play opportunities that we get presented. And many companies just don't have the budget or desire to go that route. And honestly, we found that many of these opportunities are ineffective longer term. So with small companies, it's important to be creative and try to find ways for them to get attention. And for Bridger, we recently engaged Stocktwits, which has a large retail investor following.
Yep, I'm very familiar with Stocktwits. What was the initial, how did you weave that into your work with clients?
Well, they recently come out with some programs for companies to basically advertise. They have about 10 million registered users and they have an active chat room community. Per some of their marketing, they have young and tech savvy investors. Many of them are Gen Z millennials. Most of them are decision makers, and nearly 25% have over $1 million in investments. They've come up with several programs to target this user base. The one we tried really was to specifically focus on building Bridger Aerospace's watch list. We developed some ads that highlighted their investment merits, and we paired that with a video of their scooper planes, which drop water on wildfires. The advertising started at about 5,000 for a native ad, and that's based on a $5 CPM, and it's intended to yield about 1 million impressions. We actually did two different ads. One utilized a third-party endorsement, and overall we spent about 10,000 for 2 million impressions. We ran the program for a little over a month, and in the end, we added 2,400 watch list users. We now have nearly 3,500, and that was for a click rate of 0.12. And so I think, these results are measurable. The impact to the stock price is harder to measure, but it did seem like the stock had a little more support in a time that it had been pretty weak. We saw their sentiment barometer go from mostly bearish to now neutral and even bullish on some days. And there's definitely more chat activity. And finally, Bridger's starting to move off its lows. It's starting to trade. It was in the low ones, and it's now approaching $2. Although we are moving into wildfire season, so the stock, the business has been much more active. So I do think it was worth the investment to get some eyes on Bridger. And we are fortunate that for the advertising, we had, bright red and yellow super scoopers dropping water. So I think that's it's helpful to have advertising that is very eye-catching.
Yeah, I think that's a great way and a great alternative way to target potential investors. And just kind of last question here, was there anything that you would do differently if you were to use a Stocktwits campaign again?
Yeah, I would actually do it again. And there is a potential to start and stop the program. And I would definitely do that going forward. I would run an ad, then I'd possibly pause it. You are able to do embargoed press releases. So I would switch it up and then maybe pause the ad, run a press release, and then maybe pause the ad a little bit. This way the campaign would last a little longer and it wouldn't appear like a full-on company promotion. So overall, I think it's a really inexpensive way to generate followers for a pretty small, amount of money.
That's great. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you again, Allison, for joining us, and thank you all for tuning in for another episode of Small Cap Insights, powered by Darrow Associates. If you enjoyed today's conversation, want to learn a little bit more about how strategic investor relations can elevate your company's visibility and credibility in the market, please visit www.darrowir.com. We help companies communicate their value proposition and build long-term relationships in the investment community. And we'll see you all on the next episode of Small Cap Insights. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.